do you think it's a situation where the Chinese Communist Party was reforming, was heading away from communism, and then Xi Jinping brought it back? Or was he just executing the plan that was there all along?
Every leader since Mao has had an adherence to the fundamentals of Marxism-Leninism, which has, I think, basically in the Chinese context, has had uh, basically five tenets of CCP ideology, and that is that the Communist Party is in an epic struggle with global world capitalism led by the United States. This is a key feature of it, and again, it was suppressed obviously when the relations back when the U.S. played the China card against the Soviet Union. It didn't change. It was a temporary tactic for them. The other element of CCP ideology is that there is a notion of the insidious peaceful evolution that U.S. policy towards China has, again, for those 40 years where we had our senior leaders telling us China poses no threat, or even I can remember Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice during the Bush administration said she favored a strong China. And the idea was that there was going to be a peaceful evolution politically if we just changed their economic system. And so economic engagement was tied to a hopeful but false political belief that China would eventually evolve into a non-communist, non-threatening power, and didn't happen. Um, the Chinese leadership, again, from Mao all the way through Deng Xiaoping, Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, and now Xi Jinping, have this idea that there is a perpetual revolution. They believe in that there has to be perpetual revolution. It's part of communist doctrine, so that they are constantly working to advance the communist revolution. But of course, they obviously, for deceptive reasons, don't talk about it. And they also have adopted the Leninist notion of the weakest links of capitalism. That's the idea that initially, Marx and Engels said that communism would come about in the advanced developed countries. And Lenin said, no, it's going to come about in the less developed countries, Russia, China, South America, Africa, places like that. So the Chinese adopted that, and their communist view was that communism wouldn't come in the major cities, it would come in the countryside. So they replaced the proletariat with the peasant class. Under Xi Jinping, that's kind of been changed to with a tinge of Chinese nationalism, but it's not nationalism in the sense of wanting to make China great. It's nationalism in the sense that China must resume its place as the world hegemon, the world to dominate the world, which they believe is through Chinese strategic culture that is its rightful place. And so that's kind of the guiding ideology right now. So they've mixed Chinese strategic culture with, which is a Chinocentrism, and also this idea that China is morally superior, so they can do no wrong. So when they're accused of stealing massive amounts of American technology, the Chinese response is this is totally false. The Chinese can do whatever they want. They also have the concept of under heaven, or Tian Sha, which means the whole world is really China's. They've made all kinds of historical claims. We've seen that in the South China Sea. Even the Romans never claimed to own the Mediterranean Sea when they were dominating the world. The Chinese claim that they own the South China Sea, and they make all these very vague historical claims. And it's all part of that strategic culture, and then the use of the ideology helps them to implement their plans for what will be, unless it's stopped, will be a world dominated by Chinese communism.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about the idea of endless revolution, because this is something that appears in a lot of communist ideology, not just the Chinese Communist Party, but you hear like Brazilian Marxist educator Paulo Freire talking about perpetual cultural revolution. Where does this idea come from? Because that seems insane to most people. I think the idea that you would be constantly in a state of tearing everything down.
Yeah. It comes from, Karl Marx gave a deadline for the demise of capitalism. He said that communism would inevitably take it over, and it didn't happen. So you saw Lenin then, his prediction was that, and Mao also, this idea adopted this idea of perpetual revolution. And so it will be a long fight and it will require forever. So, in other words, they didn't set a timetable. So, therefore, this was a key Leninist uh, uh, precept for power, maintaining political power. And of course, that political power gave them the ability to use ruthless, disastrous death and destruction policies. That's why we've seen 60 million Chinese who died under communism. You don't hear that in China today, but that's the estimate of the Black Book of Communism, the academics who studied this. It's the worst disaster in modern history that all of these people died. And the reason they died was because communists had ultimate power and the ends justified the means. So all means were necessary to eliminate opposition to the vaunted class, which was led by the Chinese Communist Party.
So, in terms of endless revolution, and one of the reasons why, as Chris points out, that's insane is because the Chinese Communist Party, they wanted revolution. They used revolution to ultimately win the Chinese Civil War and take over China in 1949. But they don't want revolution inside China now, right?
Right, but yeah, they're using it to say that again. In Marxism has shifted from first the workers, then the peasants under Mao. Now it's the Chinese nation that they use as the vaunted class that must be that the world is against China. Therefore, we have an endless battle against world capitalism, and this is a constant refrain from CCP propaganda. We see the idea that the CIA is working to defeat the Chinese Communist Party through color revolutions and through other means. And so this gives them great power to suppress every scintilla of dissent or even the perception of dissent or opposition to the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese people do not want the Communist Party in power. It's this elite that has designated themselves as the vanguard of the world revolution, which is going to replace the US led free and democratic system with the Chinese system. They honestly believe that, Xi Jinping did his doctoral dissertation on scientific socialism. There's actually nothing scientific about Marxism Leninism, absolutely nothing. And in fact, Marxism Leninism, and this is a key element of my counter proposal, it's kind of a quasi faith. You must believe in these tenets, and anybody that disagrees with it has to be treated as a heretic and basically destroyed.